good people, and welcome back to part 8 of the Noobs Guide to City Skylines. Hope you're having a wonderful day. And thank you so much indeed for all the support last week when we had a little monorail forestry build, and indeed the monorail was a little bit of Marmite. We did have some lovers and some haters, and I think we all knew that was going to happen. It's a little bit of a bold choice, but I think it paid off anyway. And thank you for all the support. I'm glad you enjoyed it. In today's episode, we are going to introduce the Green Cities DLC and work with a vanilla Green Cities build, very much respecting the topography today, over in this part of the map. So we have kind of a natural bowl in the landscape here, and I very much want to do something with the larger rock assets and some elevated arterial systems as well to come through here. And we're also going to rework this little highway slip system to come over this side with some asymmetricals and also feed into the main interchange down there as well. However, before we get started today, we do have some city admin that needs doing. There is a couple of graveyards that need clearing and a landfill site. However, we also have an issue with our bus lines here, so I want to do a little bit of work to correct this. So first of all, I'm going to bring this bus loop round here now to continuously stop on this side, and we'll also stop here as well, just inside the industrial area as the bus completes its loop. And then once the bus arrives, I want to go ahead and grab the line details. So I'm going to change this to one of the Content Creator Pack buses. Again, if you don't have this, Pack It is linked down to Instant Gaming below. But these actually have higher capacity than 30, so I think I'm going to go for... Let's go for the double-decker bus. So we've doubled the capacity of the vehicles from 30 up to 60 now, and I'm also going to go ahead and throw 15 vehicles on the line. And then hopefully now, as the new vehicles arrive, we can watch this bus stop slowly clear away. So there we go, bus stops are much clearer now with a high capacity bus, a few more vehicles on the line and also a mirrored stop, so people can get back into this area on both sides of the roads, including the metro as well. So look how busy it is now, right? It's so nice and walkable. And you know, the Sims are just being absorbed into the buses. And the buses continue to become increasingly more powerful as they devour the souls of the Sims. So now we'll come over to this area and let's start talking about the road network. So I'm going to start from over this point. We're going to hit this road and come back in and grab that 4-lane road. We're going to come down to our smallest elevation point. Now, when we're moving with elevation points here, without playing with road anarchy and move it to make sure we're at the same height, can be quite difficult. So we'll walk through a couple of techniques that can help. So we're going to stick in road length units of 12 here. Okay, and I want to come up by possibly one more elevation point there. Yeah, that's going to be good. So something that I've found useful for creating nicer looking curves is just to come out with a 20 curve first of all. And then let's again come on to an angle where we can judge our height more appropriately. I think a little 2-step is going to be just about fine there. We're not sloping too much and there's no kind of weird gradients happening, right? Then I'm going to delete the very end section of that 20 curve and then come out straight from that point instead. Again, in units of 12. Okay, happy with that. Looks like we're starting to come on a slight descent now, which I'm happy with. We're just going to carry and bring in this large 4-lane elevated arterial system back down to earth like this, okay? And this is going to give us some very nice detail and decorating opportunities. And what I essentially want to do with this natural basin that sits here is drop in a lot of the larger rock assets and then surround it with some very kind of heavy, free-flowing road networks and lots of trees and Green Cities assets, which we'll dive into today. Okay, so I definitely want this to come back up and link up with the highway system. So let's start reworking all of this network here. Okay, so this is going to be kind of a new type of improvised service interchange design, and you know, these are quite fun to do. You know, everyone's map and landscapes are going to be different, and highway configurations too. I'm just going to extend the slip ramp that comes into the main interchange that we built a couple episodes ago, and then around the middle point, if we can find a nice sensible spot. I think about here seems sensible. Let's come up with 3 elevation points, and we're just going to snap to the road guideline as we place, and then we're going to turn off everything but the angle. And then this is going to allow us to place in a pillar in the middle of the highway. And then again, let's see, there's a slight little lip in the terrain there that I just want to get rid of so we don't get that weird bridge jank. Let's make sure we just sort that out. There we go. And then as close to the highway as we can get it. That's going to give us 3 pillars nice and evenly in the middle. Then again, road length can now come back into play. And then we can do measurements of 12 as we come back down to earth. Likewise over on this side too. Let's stitch this back up with this side of the road network now. It looks like we'll have to do some curves here, which I'm happy to happen. So now let's work on some connection ramps. So come into your small roads. We're going to go for a asymmetrical 3-lane. We're going to come out from either side of your highway, whichever side you want it configured, by 5 units. We're going to curve by 4, then a 4 curve again. Then a straight road tool. We're going to break this road right here with road guidelines snapping on. Come down and align to these guidelines. And then hook them back in. Okay, that's going to give slipway this way. So this side isn't going to have access onto the main highway. If they want that, they can follow the arterial network back out and onto this slipway and then back out that way. But they will have access onto the ramps this way and back out this way as well. So not every ramp has to be omnidirectional, so to speak, okay? So same thing here again. And this is going to be a really effective and pretty simple to build service interchange design as well. It's quite blocky with its angles and its road kind of frames, but it definitely has a place within the city, I think. It's going to support a small amount of traffic and also help to support the main interchange a little further down the highway there as well. And here we can see some more people coming in, which is fantastic. Wonderful news. Okay, so now we have the road network in. Let's return and start talking to the monorail system. Because of course, this has to flow through the area as well. So now I want the monorail network to mimic the road. So we're going to come onto road guideline, our straight road tools. And we do want to have a slight descent here, so I'm going to allow that to come down. Now we can grab our freeform tool. And we can just create some nice gentle flowing near parallel curves to run with the main road through this area. And of course, once this is surrounded by rocks, this is going to give us some very nice monorail and kind of arterial road decoration. Okay, very nice. Let's go ahead and prepare another stop to sit over here. We'll go for just one. The main road should be okay. And that should give us a nice smooth ramp as the monorail joins the road network. There's going to be a little bit of jank today before we start to look good. Of course, working with terrain this unfriendly, but we'll make it work in our favour. Here comes some road maintenance vehicles taking care of the new roads. Very nice indeed. See how people choose to move around here now? Lots of different directions being used, which is good to see. Very nice. It's always satisfying seeing the road network come into play, isn't it? So 100% want to see the monorail flowing. Let's go ahead and sort that out. Bring it back here, and then we want 2 more stops over on here. And hopefully we can just get an impression of what this aesthetic will look like. I think we definitely want to maybe keep the monorail higher as it comes. Yeah, more so it's like this height here against the monorail. Yeah, I think we'll go for that. But either way, it's flowing now. That's going to be really cool. So now I want to come in and start working with some of the local roads. Let's go ahead and grab a 2-lane road with grass. And again, we're going to find a point snapped from a 90-degree angle off of the arterial frame. So let's go for this one here. This is going to be our starting ring, if you like. Not that they're going to be kind of perfect rings or roundabouts. As we said, we do want this to remain quite flowy and nice. We're just going to slightly amend some sections of the road here, so the slope isn't quite as severe. See, that's just a little more widened and straightened out now. That's going to be fine for us. And there we go. That gives us what we want. So now we'll come back in with some treed roads, because of course we want lots of tree decoration around here today. I'm just come back in with that topography tool. And then just start painting in some freeform curves with no road guideline. Okay, and let's keep them flowing generally on the same contour line if you can. Introduce some more interesting shapes and variations into the pattern as it meanders around the district. Looks like I've left myself enough room there to come through. And let's pop up onto another contour line here and try and stay with this one. And then we're going to come back onto road guideline as we create a freeform curve to line back up with the entrance point. Okay, so if you're playing with mods, or indeed if you have the patience with the Natural Disasters DLC and some very awkward key work, you could line the inside of this with keys. So I'm going to do a few things with this. I'm going to bring in some nature reserve path. Now you could actually make this a nature reserve itself and use some kind of the tent and the camping assets, but I don't think you really get tents under like a big arterial road like that. So I'm just going to keep it quite natural, as though it's some kind of natural, respected geological feature within the area that has been left in place as the city's been built around it. If you need a little bit of Noobs Guide lore to justify the decision. Okay, so lots of spanning pathways like that, and then let's come into our rocks and scroll right down towards the end of the list here. Okay, we're going to start playing with some of the big boys. So let's drop in some of these guys, right? And then we can even start playing with some of the more phallic looking assets here as well, just by clipping them into the sides of the larger structures. We can start to create some slightly more interesting shapes. I understand that console players also cannot place rocks as close as PC players can, so you have to bear that in mind if you're on the PlayStation editions or on the Xbox. Some large ones here too. Get some of these, definitely keen for some of the larger cliff looking ones as well. So definitely one of these, and then maybe clip a couple of these into the side of them at various different sorts of angles and configurations. And once you've come up with a couple of different variations and schemes, you can start to create some more dynamic rock shapes to help complement the city. Okay, because you very rarely use these assets, you know. It's nice to pull them out every now and again. Already some people picking up these connections now, which is fantastic news. Cool, so let's go ahead and, as always, every time we start working with one of these new DLC areas, we want to go ahead and paint out a district. So I'll do that, and then we can start talking about bringing in some Green Cities zoning. So we've also named our little Green Cities ball today after Patreon subscriber Baba Fett Ball, which I guess is kind of like a reference to, I mean, a very mild reference, but kind of like the Sarlacc pit, right? Sort of, if you use your imagination as hard as you can, maybe. So we've created a district, come into our district tools, and we now have the option for self-sufficient buildings, which will affect our residential. Want to apply this, and we also want to apply the organic and local produce specialization, which will affect the commercial zoning to be green cities. And now we can start zoning these up. So green cities residential assets, in my opinion, the best looking assets in the game. Look really nice, both low and high density, many different repeatable patterns with them. So now that we've started to place in some low density residential on the inner frame of this bowl, if you like, which is very much kind of the repeating theme of today's build, isn't it? Let's come on with another layer now. I'm going to snap to the road guideline of this straight section here. Okay, leaving a tar gap in the middle, which again is going to give us some walkability opportunities back into between the different layers. I'm aware I'm losing some zonable space here, but it's nothing significant. Now we can start to develop some outer networks, if you like. Connect into here as well. And I think what I want to happen up at the kind of outer rings or outer layers of this network is to start coming in with some of the high density residential assets, and this should give us a very nice aesthetic from down in the bottom of the bowl. So let's come in here and start introducing some, again, specifically zoned high density. You can be a little more sort of freeform with Green City's high density res, but specifically zoning still helps, okay? So that's all going to start coming in, and we'll give temporary power connections, of course, until everything can sync through of its own accord. That's going to be great. So of course, we're building out a new residential area here. They're going to want services, schools, etc. So let's start to maybe have a look at some school patterns where we can create not something of a town centre, but, you know, just a little sort of commercial and service hub for the people to come and enjoy in and around the public transport. So we're placing the Green City School, which we can now finally use the community school. Just the same job as a regular elementary, but I think it holds a few more people, but it looks a lot nicer, I think. I do enjoy the community school. And under our medical tab, we now have a couple new Green Cities assets, including a yoga garden, which looks like it can sit in here with relative ease. It is going to get a touch of jank, but this can be hit with rocks and stuff, and there's a little bit of leafage spilling over onto the road, but nothing serious, right? We also got a community pool too, which we will place somewhere around here. Let's also start coming in with some Green Cities commercial zoning into this part of town. So very much like we did with the start of the city over here, okay? We know we have an exit off the highway. We always leave a little bit of breathing room along kind of the main introductory arterial network so Sims can travel, you know? They're not immediately hitting zoning, so people aren't stopping and starting all the time as they enter this area. So I think I'm going to go for a block of it there, and then maybe a couple of it here, and then again leave that breathing room around the main junctions so people have the ability to flow in and out of the area. We can also see another opportunity for some more networks start coming out here, and this looks like a nice place to actually start bringing in a unique building, which the Green Cities DLC does introduce a few of them, including the Bird and Bee Haven, which is one I think I'm going to place in here, and we can definitely surround this up with some of the park assets. So interestingly enough, the Bird and Bee Haven is actually a loud asset. I mean, I'm sure the quantity of birds has to be numbering close to the millions for it to be causing that amount of noise pollution alongside the bees as well. But I think we can get away with placing this alongside our main road network. Okay, and we can definitely start bringing in some of those community pool assets as well. These work really nicely, kind of back to back. They're very consistent assets when placed together because of the fencing and the hedges around them. So feel free to double up, maybe even triple up some community pools if you want. And again, lots of opportunities here for zoning to come in and help feed all this area. We'll take a little trip over to the residential district. So we can see now these are the low density residentials, much nicer. And they move through levels 1 through 5 as well. And then the Green Cities high density reses are just great. Just such a huge improvement to the vast majority of the vanilla high density residentials anyway. But I do enjoy them, I really do. Okay, so we have a main idea here, right? We have some kind of outer flowing road frames now. Let's continue to bring those ideas in over on this side as well. So again, when we're playing with residential shapes near a highway, it's important to be bearing in mind any noise pollution kind of causes nearby, for which we have two, the highway toll booths and the monorail station. So even though this is actually within the red, as we mentioned before in this series, high density residential is a lot more resistant to noise pollution than low density. So we will be okay here, that's not going to be a problem. So we'll start bringing in some commercial into these areas as well, and of course don't forget all your regular and favourite park life assets are also going to work nicely in around this area as well for making it more attractive for the Sims to come and live. So bring those into. Maybe a little Japanese garden will work nicely with these sorts of vibes as well. Maybe even sort of a duo with them. No, definitely not. It's too much. It's too much Japanese garden. But you can place them in, okay? And then in terms of decorating the middle here, I might come through and place in some nature reserve assets, but it's not really the sort of nature reserve that I would build here. It's very much just a natural preserve of nature, isn't it? With the rocks, but not in the sense that there's campsites in here and whatnot and gates. It's just a open natural space. And I think a lot of nature reserve fencing to hug the perimeter, combined with some of the live oaks and whatnot, and new content creator palettes that you've come to develop and enjoy as you're getting used to the game. And what a wonderful difference these content creator palms, or content creator trees in general, not just the palms, have made to the game. Who knew we needed a new tree pack, right? Very nice indeed. Definitely some kind of smaller, more fledgling rocks out this side as well, that are in the lighter forest areas away from kind of the main rock formations. And then move down the side as we get closer to the fence as well. Scatter some around, and hopefully this will just provide a nice little border. I'm also thinking probably quite a heavily forested border between the rings, at least with maybe some kind of repeated live oak pattern, or perhaps some farm fencing. It would work nicely in this palette as well. And then as we come to introduce walkability, probably using the vanilla gravel pathway, we should start to see some nice ideas and palettes begin to form to bring what is can be quite a difficult build to pull off, especially when you're working with terrain like this. Things can get very ugly very quickly and can sometimes be hard to see beyond it. But there's a few little ideas we can put in practice today. So just kind of terrain layers, fencing, some denser forest parts and little pops of height now, combined with low density residential to start to develop something of a spice palette for the episode, okay? I'm loving these big important networks coming between the rock formations too. This is nice use of respecting the topography, isn't it? It really is. This is when it works. This is when it works. Okay, very nice. So I can see an opportunity here now for some perhaps frontage commercial to develop along this part of the city. Let's go for another batch of commercial here. So I do want to talk about what green cities can do from the vanilla perspective in terms of getting car parking into the game. So you can do these little 4x2 patterns, and you can mix and match between low and high density as well. Because there's no differentiation between low and high density, it's just a way of zoning without having to basically do this and leave the space in between, wait for it to grow and then fill it in. This allows you to do all this in one go. So I do have a video on how to get parking lots, both modded and DLC. That's on the channel. I will leave it pinned in the top right of the video and down in the description today. But there's a couple of patterns of commercial zoning that come with the Green Cities DLC that allow us to get car parks, which is very much an improved aesthetic. And these are 2x4, 2x2, and then 3x2. So we will wait for these to come in, and then we'll have a look at some car parks. And there we have it. So they do take a little while to come in, and I've decided to actually combine them with a couple of actual building assets, just so the car parks look like they're serving the two buildings either side. So it's a very rudimentary way of getting parking in the vanilla game, but it works. If you're on the PC, please download, find it, and put the growables. You don't have to wait for this sort of stuff. And indeed, you might as well just get kind of proper car parks if you're on PC anyway. So let's go for some services as well. I did notice some crime while we were waiting for the car parks to come in. So let's go for a little police station. And let's go ahead and find some awkward space perhaps where we can make a little sort of police garden and park. Maybe on the back of our community school here, okay? I'll place that in there. I'm also noticing as well, and we will kind of come over to the industrial area, is that we're getting a lot of burning down buildings. And if we look at our fire safety percentage, it's actually not that great at the minute. Only 53% is the fire hazard, which is middle of the road, isn't it? So let's go ahead and place in a fire helicopter depot. Okay, let's now I might actually place this on the service road itself. Because it doesn't really have that much traffic, I think we can make it work as a point of highway side decoration. The terrain isn't massively friendly to an asset like that though, but we'll leave it there for right now. So that's going to send fire helicopters out to help fight fires much more effectively than trucks can, because of course trucks have to drive. So we also now have green cities, so we can come in and delete / collapse all of our landfill sites, because we now have recycling centres, which are much better, much less pollutive, and you don't need to keep emptying them. So I want to place 2 down to replace a landfill. Likewise over here as well. So get rid of your vanilla landfill sites now. At this point in your city, you should be exclusively using the incineration plants or the recycling centres / the waste processing stuff from Sunset Harbour if you're playing with it. Okay, very nice indeed. We'll place the police one within the industrial area. And there should be some slightly more important highway side decoration as well, with the helicopters coming and going from this point. Also a nicer looking industrial style building on the helipad too. Very nice. There were some additional services placed, and everything's starting to come together slowly but surely now, isn't it? See the high density buildings over here now, these guys are starting to come in. And you definitely want to be going around and making these historical as they grow too. Okay, but much more aesthetically appealing, isn't it? I think it really is. So let's carry on zoning up now. We've got the demand of some residentials. This is a good point to, a good opportunity even to start increasing the population of the city. Again, lots of different shapes and sizes with high density residential green cities is more than acceptable. Feel free to zone wild and free here. So I'm very much appreciating the aesthetic of a ring of low density supported by a band of high density. So let's definitely keep that vibe coming into the area. We'll keep this road free for those decoration points, and let's start zoning up some much more tighter spaces in here. And again, I think we can perhaps afford, because we will have a kind of another separate build out here, bringing the arterial network behind the forest industry and also connecting the highway in as well. It is currently empty. So we will want to save a little bit of space here for something. This won't all be Green Cities neighbourhood. So let's just start bringing out some more frames. Let's go for road length snap as well. And then hopefully now some nice general flowing curves. I think the helicopter should be a loud asset. Yes, it is. It's not too close though. And these again as well. Let's bring this around in kind of an enclosed space. Short, snappy movements with your freeform curve can help bring you some more interesting patterns here. Dead end roads over here as well if you like. Add some forest boundaries around the edge of them and treat them as some perhaps slightly more isolated, higher density residential flats. And then we can allow the natural forest and subsequent bordering build to come in and occupy these spaces, okay? So I want to go ahead and get all of these new spaces zoned up with low and high density in their respective designs. And then we can start having a look at some detailing palettes for the area. So we're really starting to see this vibe develop now, right? Playing with these different tiers of terrain. Very nice indeed, and some high density starting to appear behind as well. And the suburb is slowly starting to grow. So we're going to carry on adding in a couple more service and general towny assets and some detailing before we move into a detailing time lapse today. Going to come ahead and place in a public library. Not there though, because that is horrific. Let's relocate this. That terrain is not remotely kind to it. So let's see if we can relocate the front of the public library so the front of it is a little more aesthetically appealing. Yeah, we'll have it on the corner of this little kind of rounded off tip road here. That's going to be fine. You know, don't forget about other kind of general green cities themed assets as well, such as the botanical gardens is always a good shout over here. Maybe place this alongside some of this commercial up on this side. Okay, it's not too bad, is it? And let's start talking about some lighter, more pedestrianised detailing. Let's come into some vanilla gravel pathway, and we can link paths just under the metro station to just help increase that walkability a touch more. You can sometimes get a little bit of an issue where the terrain jumps up at the bottom of a metro station. If you do, just ignore it and carry on during your pathway. It will eventually return to how it was supposed to be. Again, a couple of palms in here now. See those monorail lamps starting to arrive, which is great. Love how walkable ILOS and the Noobs Guide are at the minute. There is a lot of walking porn all over the place. Okay. So there we go, just some kind of dense, nice, typical Noobs Guide tropical overgrowth to carry us through the build here today. We can use this as a boundary around these larger assets and start to develop all these little walkable spaces. It's actually going to be a good point to remove the commercial there. Let's relocate all of our kind of main road commercial to the other side. And then the monorail will now flow out of this side of town. So let's place in a secondary monorail station. These are near residential, so we'll have to be careful with noise pollution. But we'll place one in there. And then this guy can now just come straight across on an angle snap. Across the highway, I imagine. Okay. Yeah, it's going to be really cool to start seeing all this wildly integrated public transport coming into play now. Easily one of my most kind of satisfying aspects of the game is doing this sort of stuff. Seeing these public transport networks grow and having the city mould around them. And our little service interchange is getting a nice bit of use now as well. See how people are choosing to drive around it. And all traffic free. Which is good. Which is good, right? Very nice indeed. Okay, so I think we're going to start to round out the aesthetic spike in the city over here. Just by bringing in some low density zoning around the edge of them now. And this is really a bit of an experiment for me today as well. I haven't really played with green cities this freeform before, so we'll see what happens. We will see what happens. Let's go into high school availability. We definitely want a high school over here. And again, the Institute of Creative Arts is going to be a good shout for this, I think. I'm thinking I definitely want the Institute of Creative Arts to possibly sit facing this slip road network. So let's see what we can do to accommodate that idea. Let's come onto a road guideline snap from this point, and then we'll bring it across like that. We will place in the Institute itself. That's going to be a really key point of decoration for the highway as well. Having a nice important asset like that sat facing the network. I'm going to be on board with that, I think. Let's get it hooked in. I can also just about carry on my other network here if I wanted to. It's come off the grid though. Don't forget about all your other props and detailing bits and pieces you picked up from previous DLCs and episodes. If you want to mix in some park life cafes and stuff that we've done previously, instead of car parks, then this is a great spot to do it. And likewise along the high street as well. Come back into your park life stuff here, and the climbing frames that you unlocked are going to pair nicely with your new Green Cities school. So you can start placing these, and so don't forget about them. Really start getting into the habit of mixing and matching DLCs and idea themes and areas. You'll come up with much more varied and interesting cities. However guys, that does feel like a good place for a detailing time-lapse. A lot of these empty spaces around here will be filled up with residential zoning as and when the demand comes in, so this should help us transition between these sharp spikes in height. Very much how we're getting the aesthetic here, right? Kind of a small band of buildings in front of the mid-rises. I'm just going to slightly amend my monorail system so it's a little more stable. I don't like quite how roller coastery it is at the minute. Just want it to be a little smoother. So I'll amend that. And then lots of walkability in and around the middle bowl. Basically going to detail up kind of each quadrant of this middle bowl the same fashion here. Very overgrown. Lots of dense trees and maybe some fencing in around this middle grid pattern. And continue to make the area vastly more walkable with pathways between the different layers and back onto this layer up here too. Decorate the roundabout from last episode and also carry on bringing in the palm pattern from the highway design and some rocks around the new service interchange too, alongside our usual little bits of detail and action that we love so much. So as always, we will be right back. Okay guys, that is going to do it for today. I want to thank you all so much for watching. If you've enjoyed the video, likes, comments and shares below really help me out. As much if you haven't enjoyed it, then please feel free to leave a dislike as well. Really happy with this. We have very much respected the topography today and playing with lots of different layers with low and high density residential. And really fun to introduce some of the Green Cities assets into the city for the first time. And lots of thick forestry, very heavily repeated vanilla bush patterns as well in this area has really helped tie things together. And of course pathways, fencing in their appropriate places to help tie in individual builds into their own assigned lots. As always, there was a ton of detail you guys wouldn't have seen, so do hang around for the outro tag. And just a quick thank you to say for all support on the channel recently. You guys are really enjoying all the videos and leaving me feedback and comments and help and support, and I really appreciate it. Never thought we'd even come close to like 45,000 subscribers. So just thank you for all support. Really appreciate it. I'm glad you guys somehow are still enjoying the videos this long into it. Otherwise, I will shut up and I will leave it there. I want to thank you all so much for watching. And as always, enjoy the rest of your day.